Hi students. I know I've talked a lot about the color wheel in the measurements as well as writing about the do's and don'ts of setting it up. Lighting is really important. The lighting here is making my yellow look a little pale again. I'm not sure why that's happening. I've tried different light sources, but I just wanted to give you a summary, and I'll show you a little bit about mixing and things that you truly want to avoid. Um, Anytime you're doing a project in color, with the exception of monochromatic because you're only using one, actually if you're using a tertiary and a monochromatic, you'd want to do at least mix some of those, because anytime you have a hyphenated color on the wheel, that means you have to mix it more than once if you're doing a study of that color, and you want to mix it the same every time. So it's definitely helpful to have a wheel around. Um, Throughout your art classes, you'll have many wheels. At least have one hanging on your wall nearby, but you want it to be accurate, not just to match those tertiaries if needed, but also to see the secondaries in between. Those are often done wrong as well. It's always too dark, and just like values dry too dark overnight, so does the lower part of the wheel, and even the upper if it has too much of the lower colors in it. Um, I may repeat myself here, but I'll just go ahead and talk about it while I'm mixing. Of course, you want to have already really developed and nuanced these colors out of the tube. This is your cadmium red medium, cadmium yellow medium, and ultramarine. There's many other reds, blues, and yellows out there, but these are considered the most effective for mixing. Some people will use cobalt or even phthalo, which is way too greenish for a blue, but a lot of times people do it so that they don't have to deal with transparency issues, because ultramarine is so transparent it can almost look like black sometimes or see-through. But it's a royal blue, and it's intended to be that way on the wheel. When you look at your wheel, sometimes the colors on the bottom will look really dark, but you want to make sure there's at least a distinction between them. So normally I would use piles that are 3 times this size, but I wanted to just do a little mini wheel. You'll be using this in your warm-up for, in my color theory class, this is my first warm-up, and you'll apply it to that color wheel that was measured out with the designs. For beginning painting, you'll be using this on your 3rd project before you start your local color project. And in intermediate, it'll be your 2nd project, but I recommend you do this before your 1st project, which is monochromatic, because in intermediate, I require a tertiary as your hue, choice of hue. So we want to see everything here. Anytime you're about to use color, it's good to set up your wheel anyway. All right, so here's the primaries. These are the hues or colors, same thing, that occur in nature. They exist in and of themselves. You can't make them. You can't create them. They just exist. And everything else is made from them. Now, you might have variations of brightness, neons or pinks or whatever, but this is the basis for all of it. I wanted to show you how weak the yellow is. Yellow is the weakest hue on the wheel. The wheel is a value scale. So once we get it finished, you'll be able to see how it goes from nearly white to nearly black. If you were colorblind, you'd see a value scale on the wheel. And our goal in mixing a wheel is to create an accurate value scale, like in the warm-up for the black and white projects. If you start jumping here and there and here and there, it's not accurate. So we want to make sure that there's even steps, like you're walking down into a basement and every step is the same height and width as one another. So it's a trick of the eye. It's not about amounts. There's no chemistry formula for it. It's a visual step. And if you have more than one palette knife, that's helpful. But if not, just clean your palette knife in between. You can do a few with one knife before you switch, and then a few, and switch, and a few. Because as soon as yellow is not involved, in other words, when you get to red, you gotta rinse off, start over. And then as soon as you get to blue, red is over, so you gotta fresh, and then blue to there. So you can basically do this in 3 steps. What I like to do is take my pile of yellow, which you'll never have enough yellow. That's why I have 2 tubes of it. And here we're gonna have our yellow orange, because we're headed to red. And then here we're gonna have our orange. And then here we're gonna have our red orange. And with each pile, you wanna use a little less, because we're gonna have less going in from the yellow over to the red. It can be adjusted too, but ideally you wanna have this sort of resolved before you start. Again, you know, I have this red on here from where I was mixing. You can also move it over with the back of a brush or whatever you need to do to keep it from getting contaminated. Yellow orange is super, super close to yellow. People always make it too dark. And you never want to put yellow into anything else. You have to take the other thing and apply it to the yellow. This is the amount, literally, that we want to start with. Literally, boom. Like you can barely see the dot. Barely. And if you have too much red on your palette knife, you're better off using a different one or completely wiping this off, because if you don't, you're going to have too much red in there. But I'm just saving the paint on there, so I'm going to use this yellow because it's already yellow, and I'm going to start mixing that little dot, that tiny dot, into my yellow here. I mean, you saw the fleck, the absolute fleck that I used. And guess what? It's too dark. You saw the fleck. You're a witness to the fleck. I can even take a little more yellow out of here, put it there, just because I don't want to contaminate again. Look how it got so orange so fast. It's still... That's what I'm saying, you'll go through so much yellow. Still too orange, still too orange. You could also get more out of there. I didn't start out with enough yellow. But again, if you use a contaminated other color like red on there, you're gonna have a real problem and you're gonna end up with almost a red-orange. It's still, literally still too orange. So I'm gonna have to get a little more yellow from here. It's okay if I just leave this trace, because you know that this is the yellow, so that's fine. But I'm gonna take a little more yellow, and you know what? It is so dark that I'm actually gonna move half of it over to my orange and use this yellow to try to lighten this. So what I'm saying is you can play around in this area first. And I don't recommend mixing all of these at once, because using acrylic, it'll all dry out anyway. But this is why it's a good exercise. Like if you just use a small amount, you can get a sense. You can even do this on your palette paper and then tape it to the wall and use a fresh sheet, because this is going to dry out, but it's good practice. I'm going a little bit oblong, but this is my yellow. This is better now for yellow orange. I'll move it this way so it's a little bit in order. Now I can use this pile and split it, and I'm going to make an orange and a red orange. Now yellow is the lightest hue and the least strong. Red is a middle value. It's neither here nor there, so it's medium strength. Blue is potent, like black. It's potent and it's intense. So we're gonna take, now I gotta switch, because you can't contaminate this with yellow. So I'm gonna use either a different one or wipe this one. And again, boom. I don't wanna overdo this orange, because then I'll waste more yellow like I just did. I made this dot twice as dotty as that. I hope I didn't overdo. Now I can use the same palette knife here if I used a different utensil to move the red over, which is easy to do. This orange should be like a pumpkin on Halloween, like total pumpkin. Everybody makes this too dark. And if they don't, it dries darker anyway, so then it gets too dark. I mean, literally a fleck to make it more. You have to be really conservative. Literally, it's better to keep adding a fleck, a fleck, a fleck, because once it's too dark, there's nothing you can do except waste an entire tube of yellow. And that's just no good. Okay, I'm getting closer, getting almost there, and I'm just using the residue on this. Okay. And this is gonna be, all right, this is gonna be almost there. Okay, see it coming together? Okay, there's my orange. Once it comes together, that's what it is. Now you can see the even steps. Yellow, yellow, orange, orange. Boom. Now I gotta make, I'm gonna put some of this over there so you can see more of my yellow. All right, and so over here, I'm gonna mix red orange. Now red orange has to fit between these two visually. This one needs to be mixed better. Okay, yellow, yellow, orange, orange. This is a perfect orange. If we were in the classroom, I'd take a finger, dip it there, and go around everybody's orange and see if it matches. Because inadvertently, all the oranges come out too dark. And once your wheel is off, all your designs will be off. Everything will be off. And all of your local color won't mix properly, and your tertiaries will be off. Any kind of project you're working on, you gotta have that going on. So I'm gonna put a tiny bit more on this one. You can see the yellow got eaten, but I feel like I've got plenty of these. Never too much pile of yellow. Okay, I'm getting, see how fast it turned red? Like instant red. Barely any. I think I got lucky on that one. There you go. Now most people would think this is orange. This is not orange. This is red orange. I even could put more yellow that's on my palette knife. See, I shouldn't have put that on there. I had it so perfect. If you make too much, you can always put it in a container. Gotta make sure there's no streaks, not only because you can't read it, but because when you go to transfer it, if you're transferring it to a wheel, you're gonna need a nice amount and also no streaks so that you can get that nice hard edge with your flat brush. Okay, check this out. This is what you're looking for. When in doubt, just take a screenshot. I'll take a picture of this and put it underneath. You want yellow, yellow, orange, orange, red, orange, red. I'm feeling a little lack of a jump, so I'm going to be careful, but go back in a little here because I feel like there's too much of a jump right there. Better to err on the side of too yellow. It's easier to fix later. See, I want to eyeball it as a whole. I'm gonna do a little. God, it's just like, see, the process is just like very important that you take a look. And sometimes one will be off and affects all the other ones. So sometimes you have to redo. Okay, I'm gonna do just a little more here. But see how careful I've been not to go too dark. I didn't know until I got to red that that and that were a little too yellow. Don't want to mess up my yellow orange, but now I'm seeing it's all about the steps. The steps. Now, based on experience, I went a little bit under. That's better. Okay, see the flow? Imagine it as a value scale. Now, the minute you get to red, you can't use all this stuff because it has yellow on it. So you got to clean it all off. Luckily palette knives are easier to clean than brushes, but you got to make sure you have like a damp paper towel or wipe them really good. Because any little streak of yellow that's in here is going to cause a problem. That's why it's good that you already have your pure ones done, because those are pure. I mean, they're non-negotiable. That's how they come out of the tube. All right, so now I have to make tertiary and secondary. I'm going to make a red violet, violet, and blue violet, also called purple. Now red violet's mostly red, so I'm going to put more red in this pile. Now keep in mind how potent the blue is. The blue is as potent as the yellow is weak, so we want to make sure we don't overdo there. These are the ones that are hard to see, and sometimes you have to spread them out this way once you mix them so that you can actually see what they are, because they can get very dark. And again, that's because ultramarine, although it's the best mixing blue, is really transparent. So a lot of times people use a lot of white when they're doing either a monochromatic painting or a design or whatever. They want to have that pop out. All right, so we got red, red, violet, violet, and then I need to have a blue violet here. I want more red in this one than that one, and I want more red in this one. But see, the beauty of it, you can move them all around. You can steal from one and put in the other like I did over here, because you're in this section where you can use all the same palette knife. I just don't want to contaminate my red. I'm getting pretty happy about this whole scene over here because you can see how it's starting to flow. Later, once it's painted in on your actual color wheel, you want to put it on the wall, step back when it's completely dry, and see what needs tweaking. If it's too dark, make sure it's dry, paint white over it. Don't attempt to fix a color by putting another color on top of it. It doesn't work. There's no coverage. So let's say my yellow-orange is too dark. When I put it up on the wall and look at it, I gotta wait, let it dry, put white paint over it, leave it alone, let it dry completely, remix it, put it there. And sometimes it actually helps, because now you've created another layer of barrier between your paint and the board or canvas. Like you're better off developing that layer of white and then redoing. Okay. Red violet is like a brick. It's like a maroon. And again, since these are all related, but I don't want to contaminate my blue, I want to use now that I've mixed these, clean it off or get another one. See that dot? Now I want this to be red violet, not violet or blue violet. So I want to use just a little. It's going to do similar to up here. Okay. Now it's not enough, but again, if your palette knife is dirty, a little more. Scoop it up and try to get that maroon brick starting to get there. And sometimes you don't know what it is till you get over there. Use a different finger now because I wasn't making a bird or anything. I like to use every tool at my disposal, whatever finger hasn't been used yet. Now that's starting to have a little shift. I'm good with it. I have the same palette knife. I can move on. Again, I don't want to contaminate with the blue. So I'll just I should have put the flecks in first. That would have helped. I'll do them all here. There. All right, so now I need to mix purple. Purple is neither here nor there. It should just be more bluish than the blue. I'm going to use this for something. You could use the back of a brush, whatever. I just want to bring it over here so I don't get red in the pile of blue, which is clean, so to speak. All right, get more purpley, more purpley. And a lot of this has to do with the amount of pile that's there too. If you can have a conscious way of putting tons of yellow, less red, and even less blue on the palette to start with, it'll save you a lot of time. So I'm going to drag some more blue over for my blue violet. And blue violet should look really bluish but not all the way. And you want to use these as a guide so that it doesn't get too uneven. So you can do this as a warm-up because as things dry out, this is just for you to see the mixing process and getting the colors right. So obviously I need more blue in here. The other thing you can do is split your blue in half, drag it over, because obviously I don't have enough blue to get my blue violet. Put a little more on there just because I clearly didn't put enough on there. Clean that off. Remix this, rework it. And I could put more yellow too. I'm gonna need more yellow as I go back up. I'm gonna stop it short here because you get the deal. And at this point, all you have to do is build your blue back to your yellow, which is blue, green, green, yellow, green, there we go, and yellow. Now remember that yellow, green, and green are very light. Just do a quick, if this is your yellow, green, and this is your green is like grass. It should be like grass, not, that's better. Green grass, not green, the depth of the sea kind of thing. I mean, it has to be very yellow, green, green, blue, green. Whoops, I got contaminated my yellow, but I wanted you to just kind of get the sense of what you're going to make there. Yellow, green, green, blue, green, blue. Make sure your green is light and grassy and that these are super close together visually. So this should be a good kind of a reference. And if you need to make a little warm up like this, hang it on the wall because it's going to dry, and then redo it on your actual thing. Otherwise, just very carefully take your flat brush and transfer it onto your wheel. The wheel is important to do for, again, the first color project, the tertiary monochromatic for 27, and the local color for both 27 and 26, and also for Art 23 when we get to neutrals and earth tones. That's a whole other deal. So this is good for now. That's the wheel. Bye.